Do we get paid for this if this goes well? Welcome to the...
This could take
I'm
some
so
time.
nervous, bro. I'm so nervous.
We're just trying to get 10 minutes.
Welcome to the first ever St. Bede's Prefect Podcast. I'm George Nevin and I'm the head prefect at St. Bede's.
Hi, I'm Coll and I'm your deputy head prefect.
Hello, I'm Ethan O'Donovan and I'm your other deputy head boy.
Joined by a special guest today, ex-prefect, first 15 captain, New Zealand school rep, NPC champion, top 14 champion, junior All Blacks, and also now turned agent, Cameron McIntyre.
Thanks for the intro, George. Lovely to be here and a privilege to be part of the first Prefect Podcast.
Yeah, awesome.
Great initiative.
Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
To get things started, we'll probably just give you some quick fire questions, if that's all right with you.
Sure thing.
So I'll just try to think of the first thing that comes to mind. First, favourite NRL team?
Bulldogs,
Who do you support in NRL Origin?
Queensland,
Summer or winter?
summer.
Any superpower you could have?
Any superpower I could have? Good question. I often think about trying to read people's minds, so I'd love to have that superpower.
Ice cream or cake?
I probably say that because at times I'm worried about other people in certain environments reading my mind. So that's why that came to mind.
If you couldn't play rugby, what other sport would you play?
Loved playing cricket growing up. I played a lot of sports actually, tennis, cricket, sort of a bit of everything. But yeah, I think cricket was probably my second love of sports. So I'd go with cricket, especially with where that's at now.
Were you a batter or a bowler?
I like to think of myself as both, Donnie. As both. I can picture a good mate of mine, Blair Stewart, who used to bowl some lobby off spinners out here on the front field, and we used to do our best to try and hit the rector's office with a big pull shot. So it's a good memory from my times at high school.
Oh, nice. Rom-com or horror?
What was that, sorry?
Rom-com or a horror movie?
Horror.
Horror.
But I do have to watch a lot of rom-coms with my wife and two young girls, so I'm unfortunately in front of a lot of rom-coms.
Have you watched any recently?
Yes, we have actually. What was it? It was... what's her name? The blonde girl. She's pregnant. Knocked Up, I think it was, which is a good one. A good one, yep.
Oh, nice.
So let's go back in time, you're year 13. What did you think you were going to do when you left school?
I was hopeful I'd be a rugby player.
Yeah.
So I was lucky enough that materialised. It was a bit different when I was coming through school because rugby wasn't actually professional. You know, when I sort of wanted to be a rugby player, I just wanted to do that because it's what I loved. And then obviously the game went professional and it was a genuine career opportunity. So, you know, timing was quite good and we're quite lucky in that regard. But yeah, I was pretty focused probably from as a 4-year-old, really, the first time I played footy, that was all I ever wanted to do. So as I say, just lucky it became a professional game, and it's it's an industry I still work in every day.
Yeah, when you say that it wasn't very professional when you left school, how was that like process out of school into professional rugby, and then how did that sort of work?
I suppose it was still a really developing model where we did have what you guys have today, you know, like the academy systems, but it was in its infancy, right? So it wasn't quite as structured. It was just a little bit of training here and there, and then we still, you know, we had our club rugby, but the emphasis was really all on club rugby, and that's where you got picked from. So the junior teams and opportunities that I guess players have today is far greater, you know, with Crusader development teams or 20s competitions and things like that. We didn't quite have that. It was more club, and then you transition into your age group provincial stuff.
Yeah.
And the rest from there. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And I guess how being a New Zealand representative and that type of stuff, how was that as a young guy?
It was good. It was, I suppose it was pretty special. It was tough back then too. So, you know, as an example, my year 13 year, we played New Zealand schools. The great Jerry Davidson was our coach of New Zealand schools, which probably helped with selections. And myself and a good mate of mine, Jamie Nutbrown, we were the only two players from the South Island to be in that team.
Oh, wow.
So it was, you know, as it is today, very North Island dominant in terms of those national teams.
Yeah.
But even then, back then, it was probably even harder because there was not really any exposure, which
Yeah.
you guys have these days with TV games and, you know, selectors being able to watch you a bit more. So, yeah, that was a good memory with Jerry, and we still share some good stories about our time in New Zealand schools.
Yeah.
Speaking about TV games, we actually saw you here for Beads for the first ever Magic Round that the new South Island Boys Network hosted. What was that like, and being here for that experience?
Yeah, it was good. It was really good, actually. Obviously, you boys put on some good displays, which is always good to see. But I thought it was a great initiative. You know, there's been a lot of talk around the South Island comp and whether or not it was going to actually happen. So I thought that weekend was a really good example of when people put a lot of work in and something comes together like that. It's just a great opportunity for all you lads to be seen on a bigger stage, and there's a wee bit more pressure when you've got all the schools here and all the spectators, and you know, it's just pretty cool experience, I thought.
Yeah. Sure.
How did you boys enjoy it?
Yeah, it was great fun. Something really different. We had to go to a dinner on the Saturday night with all the other teams and sit in our positions, so just something really cool to meet a bunch of guys who I would have never got the opportunity to talk to if it wasn't for the comp.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's pretty unreal. Talking about the dinner, I had to sit next to Kieran Reid, and yeah, it was awesome. Just actually being able to talk to him and ask him some in-depth questions about rugby and his own personal life, I guess. And he got up in front of all of us and talked sort of about what it takes, and it's not always about being like the best rugby player, but about being a better man and stuff like that. It's pretty cool to hear from someone who's, you know, dedicated to his craft like him. So
Very cool.
yeah. Obviously, we talked quite a bit about rugby now, but going back to your time at St. Bede's, I guess, how'd you find it? A couple favourite memories from, I guess, year 9 to 13, or?
A couple of favourite memories. If I go all the way back to year 9, year 10, obviously the old haka competition's always a big thing for year 9s.
Yeah.
Can remember being nervous as heck, walking out into the quad in front of the old tuck shop and having to perform that in front of the big boys. Yeah. That was super scary. Another super scary moment I remember as a youngster was Johnny Leo, who I played a lot with the Crusaders and with New Zealand teams and that. He was year 13 here when we were year 9, and I always have him on that his parents never brought him a new pair of school shorts from year 9 up, because he used to walk towards us and his quads would just be popping out of his shorts, and we'd all sort of hunker down, and we were super scared of him. And Johnny's, you know, ultra nice guy and that, but he just had these legs on him that for a high school student seemed ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I always remember that, and as I say, still give him a bit of grief about that today. But no, I've got a lot of awesome memories from my time at high school. I always say to people, you know, my kids included, that your years at high school are sort of the time of your life. You know, you don't really have too many things to worry about, and still living at home with mum and dad. You got no bills to pay. You know, when you step out of high school, things get pretty serious pretty quick. So my memories, you know, both on the sports field here and in school are nothing but good memories.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, there's a few memories from the withdrawal room and things like that. I spent a bit of time in there, but that's another story. But yeah, as I say, it's a great time to reflect on when you're at school, and nothing but good thoughts of my time here.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm taking it further down the line, your rugby career. Obviously, you got to play in France. What was probably one of the biggest culture shocks, that you felt when you moved over there?
I think probably the casual nature of the French lifestyle was something that took us a long time to adapt to. And an example of that is we get over there as, you know, I guess as foreigners, we need to set up bank accounts, get cell phones, all that sort of stuff. So we go to training at sort of 8 o'clock in the morning, get home for a couple of hours lunch break in between trainings. You go and try and set something up and you can't, because all the businesses are closed because everyone's gone home for lunch. And then they have lunch, then they have a sleep for an hour, and some of the offices might not open up till 3 o'clock. So there's kind of trying to adjust to that was really difficult for us. Wow. Because we're used to doing something, you know, sort of 8 till 5, and then you get home and finish. Whereas the the French lifestyle is work a few hours, take a few hours off to spend with your family and have a sleep, and then go back and maybe do a couple more hours work, and if not, just don't open your office. So that was a huge change for us, and once you adapt to it, it's actually a great change, because it forces you to spend time at home and eat with your family, eat with your kids, you know, and then sit down and spend a couple of hours together. So we were really young when we moved over there. We left New Zealand at 24, which at the time was really young, and we're probably a bit too young to appreciate that. But when you look back on it, you know, some of those things that you're forced to do because of their lifestyle are actually pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Talking about that transfer over, was that a hard decision, or was it like just a spur of the moment kind of thing? How did that arise, you moving over to France?
It was a decision we spent a lot of time deciding on. I suppose I'd done a bit here for a 24-year-old at the time in New Zealand rugby, and played a couple of years in New Zealand A, and I felt there were a few players ahead of me at the All Blacks at the time that might maybe move on in 2 or 3 years' time. So the idea behind going overseas was to spend 2 years over there and then come back to New Zealand, where I'd still only be 26. Maybe those players have left, and you know, I can try push further on into the All Black frame. But unfortunately, what happened? Well, not unfortunately. I mean, there's two sides to look at that. I got over there and things went really well, and pretty quickly I got signed to a longer term contract. So that thought process changed pretty quickly. But I suppose, you know, one of the things on that too is, when you're in professional sport or a lot of things in life, you can always look back and, you know, it's the benefit of hindsight. Like, would I go overseas again if I was 24 and in the position I was? Probably not. I probably would have held on for a bit longer. But those decisions that I made and that journey I went through is ultimately what's led me to be in the role I am today, where I work as a player agent and advise players making those key decisions. And I think that those experiences I went through is probably what sets me apart from a lot of other agents, where I've been there, I've done it, I've made those big decisions as a young man, and you know, can give them my 2 cents on how that's all played out.
So your advice would be to stay patient now and try to work your way through the system here? Or?
Well, I think for you young men, having patience is tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
But and I think every case is different. You know, the opportunity's different. The landscape's changed around professional sport, and the way that you guys are growing up as young athletes and young men's changed as well. So it's very much a case by case basis. But if we use my example, it's probably like, you know, you're only one injury or one step away. So just be patient, as you say. Good advice, Donny.
I guess you sort of talked about how you had to make those big decisions, and it sort of made you into the agent you are now. So when you were making those decisions, did you not really have much guidance by anyone else, and you sort of had to take that all on yourself?
Yeah, that's right. Obviously, I had my family there, you know, parents and stuff helping me out, but you know, they've never been through those types of decisions and didn't really understand, I suppose, the global landscape of rugby. So I had an agent at the time, but I think, you know, historically, the advice they've given it's not, you know, really well-rounded advice in terms of the individual and their current situation. It was, you know, back then it was more about getting a commission probably on a player and sending them off, and off you go. So, you know, as you say, that's that's the benefit of hindsight. At that time, I think the advice was really limited around what we could access as young rugby players.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like, continuing talking about on like you and the agency business, what's probably something people tend like a stereotype about being an agent?
Probably the classic one is, you know, here come the sharks, or, you know, the sharks are circling. And I think that's fair enough. You know, if you look at the NRL and, you know, even rugby and what I've just said about getting bad advice as a youngster, the agency as a whole can sometimes be viewed a bit negatively. And you can never keep anyone happy in our job, because, you know, you got a really good young player on one hand who's born and raised in Auckland, but all of a sudden moves down to the Highlanders Auckland Rugby and the Blues are going to get pretty angry about that, aren't they? Whereas the Highlanders are really happy.
Yeah.
So it's a real juggling act at times, our job, and quite often we're the ones in the middle where we're easy to blame when a player makes a decision, but at the end of the day, we take a really neutral stance where we're advising the player and the player's family on what we think is ultimately best for them. And, as I said, that's in that Auckland versus Dunedin case or vice versa, or Chiefs versus Crusaders. There's always an unhappy party in that scenario. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's easy for you. Like you said, you've had to make those big decisions before, and now you can give that advice to other people, which is awesome. So.
Yeah, that's right. And as I said, it's I think my responsibilities in that situation is to remain really neutral around it. Like present the pros, present the cons, but ultimately try and let the player and their family decide on what's best for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Rather than, sort of really steering them down one route and to pull a trigger one way or the other.
Yeah.
Wow.
So through the agency, you've clearly worked with some big names. For those who don't know, worked with Richie Mwanga. Anyone else that's really big, and what sets them apart from a person coming out of high school? So.
I've worked with some big names, which is good actually. I was doing a thing the other day actually, just around international players, and I've looked after about, I think it was more than 35, close to 40 international players over the last few years, which is pretty cool. So, that's top end All Blacks, as you say, with the likes of Richie, your Will Jordans, your Fletcher Newells. I've looked after players, some of the younger guys that, your generation will be really familiar with, like your Ruben Loves and your Fabian Hollands, Peter Lakai, these sort of players, and then new All Blacks like Duplessis, Karifi, and some good players like that. So it's it's been cool to work alongside them, but it's also cool to work alongside the young and up and coming generations as well that are really aspirational. So real spread of players, I guess, and everyone's different, so you learn a lot from every player and every situation that they're going through too.
Yeah, for sure. On the topic of Richie Mwanga, he's just finished his stint in Japan, was it? Or?
Japan, with Toshiba. Yep.
Yeah, so there's been rumours he's coming back and maybe playing club footy this weekend. Is that true? Or
I've heard that. Yeah. If this is going live, let's put it out there and let's get 10,000.
Yeah, you're allowed to
down at the ball run.
Yeah.
Might struggle for this weekend because I think he might be on an international flight.
Right.
But who knows? You never know. But there's obviously been a lot of media around Richie and stuff over the last few years, hasn't there? But he's taken all that in his stride.
Yeah.
He's a great example of remaining really level-headed, no matter where his career's got to or what's happening around him in the media. He's just gone out and focused on what he needs to week. So he's a real pleasure to work with as a number of our clients. But as I say, there's been so much happening around Richie over the last few years, and probably a lot more to unfold in the next couple of years as well. Yeah,
for sure. And I guess obviously you went to the sort of French path. Was ever like Japan or something like that on your radar when you were a youngster?
No, not when I was a youngster, to be honest. I think Japan wasn't massively on the radar when I first, decided to go overseas. Right. It's become a bit of a powerhouse over the last few years, in terms of where the world of rugby wants to get to. But after we spent close to 6 years in France. We also done like 4.5 years in Japan on the way home too. Oh, wow. So we did the whole Japanese experience, and had our kids and stuff over there with us for that time. So you got to experience both parts of the world with Europe and Japan, and that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So obviously you've given back to the school, coached me and George last year for the first 15, and your son just finished last year, Ruben. What do you know has changed from your time at school to now?
I think you're all probably a lot more respectful than what we were back then. But in short, probably not too much. You know what I mean? I think there's the school that I find the school's really well balanced now. I think maybe what way back when I was at school was probably heavily geared towards certain sports. Whereas now I think it's there's just equal opportunity, be it academic or be it sporting or musical, whatever it might be. I think the school does a really good job in catering for everyone and making sure that everything's as important as the next. But no, I mean, the school keeps ticking along. There was still teachers that we had, Jerry, like I say, Bazadun, obviously they've left recently, but a couple of legends that still see around and have good yarns. Bruce Cameron, is he still here?
Yeah.
I saw him last year while we were coaching. So he was my PE teacher, my outdoor pursuits teacher. He could probably tell a few stories on the podcast too. But the school's great. It keeps ticking along, and it was good to be involved with you lads last year. And actually, I'm seeing the fruits of my coaching out there this year with you boys.
So you were a bit of a troublemaker at school, or
not
a lot
really,
of energy?
Not really. I was involved with a couple of troublemakers. I was sort of just guilty by association, really. So.
Obviously, with you being a proud BDM, what does it mean to you to be a BDM?
I'm really proud of that, actually. We have a pretty good reputation around town and around the country as BDMs, and it's I suppose it's a tag that people are quite familiar with, be it good or bad at times. But I'm really proud of my time at St Bede's and the fact that I'm related to the school. We've got a lot of family, and there's a lot of history, and as I said earlier, some of my favourite times are memories from high school and being a BDM, so I wouldn't change that for the world.
Yeah. As you say that, flashing back to one of the chats I had with Ken Reid, he sort of said some of his most fondest and favourite rugby memories are from First 15. Would you agree with that, or do you have a bit of a different take?
Yeah, definitely. No, I think it's a bit different First 15 because you come up together with your mates from year 9, or they might even be from primary school, right? You come through from 5, 6 years old, and you end up playing in a competition like a First 15 together. It's just different, because like I said, it's the time of your life, but I think it's because there's no real pressure on you, and you are just playing with your mates. And, you like seeing your mates do good things, or your mate who might not kick on out of school, but he's playing with you beside you in the First 15, and he scores a try or does something great, and they're just the things that stick with me. Probably I think about probably half or 3/4 of our First 15 over the 3 years that I played there, and man, there were just some real good mates, and just guys that didn't necessarily play the game after school, but that might have been the pinnacle for them or whatever, but the memories you make together are just awesome because you've got such a good bond. Yeah. I think it's a bit different for you lads now too, because, you're on TV, there probably is a certain element of pressure, but we never had that. So as I say, it was just about trying to go out there and do everything you could for your mates.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It's very similar to what Billy Harmon said to us before Magic Round come in and presented our jerseys, and said one of his most favourite times playing rugby was actually for St Bede's at school. So very good advice to hear. Yeah. Was there anyone in the Canterbury or Crusader, I guess not academy, but place that really helped you?
Can't think of anyone top of my head. I mean, it was, when I came out, I guess it was such a competitive environment. Like I was, my idol growing up was Andrew Murdens, but then, I did everything I could to try and base my game on him, the way I kicked the ball, the way my run-up was for goal kicking, all this sort of stuff. But then I came out of school and I got involved with the Canterbury team straight away. So all of a sudden I was an 18-year-old kid, but then in that environment with my heroes, and really quickly it turned into like a competitive type of respect, if that makes sense, where he was the All Black first 5 at the time, so I in essence was trying to become him, but I was also competing with him really quickly, so that was an interesting dynamic for me. And I think back then we had my debut game for Canterbury as an example. The backline was Justin Marshall. It was Murdens at 10 to start with, Daryl Gibson, Mark Robinson, Marika Vunenbacher, Leon McDonald, and Caleb Ralph So I remember Mertz went off with a head knock about 4 minutes into the game. So I got put straight out there. And basically that's an All Blacks starting back line, you know. And I was out there as a young lad, so it was it was pretty intimidating. But it was one I look back and you know, and think, shit, you know, it was a different time, I guess, you know, where they were all so competitive and there wasn't a whole lot of advice or coaching done for the young ones. It was more so about probably looking after themselves, and you know, they were as I say, they were current All Blacks and a lot of them starting All Blacks. But yeah, in terms of someone really helping me and come through with my game, there wasn't too many players as soon as I stepped out of school, to be honest. Yeah.
Obviously, talking about pressure in a high sporting environment, what advice would you give the younger generation, like moving forward in their sporting careers? What advice would you give them?
I think the pressure's probably come a wee bit too soon now for young players, you know. I mean, as I said, we're talking about the Super Round and how great that is. You know, it is awesome and it's on TV, but that does come with other pressures. You know, there's no two ways about it. It just adds pressure. You've got a bigger audience watching you. You know, be it rugby or be it other sports. I think the pathway to become a professional now is really clear. You know, in all those sports, and there's certain, I suppose, milestones you need to hit along the way to try and achieve those targets. But yeah, the pressure it's almost $1 million question for young players and young athletes, isn't it? You know, how do you deal with it? How do you cope with it? How do you play with it? You know, you're in the middle of a game and you've made 4 or 5 mistakes. You're on TV. You've got 600 of your schoolmates out there watching. You know, that's pressure, you know, and it kind of only ramps up as you go through the grades and get out of school. But there is also so much work that's put into young players now as well, from schools, from performance coaches, from academies, you know, because everyone's aware of the pressure. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, and you know, I think if I think back to my days, it's something that at times I struggled under pressure but had no coping mechanisms because there was no awareness around it. We had no coaches trying to, you know, help us through high pressure situations. It was all, you know, just buckle up and get on with it and work through it. Whereas, you know, the awareness, as I say, nowadays is far greater. And, you know, I know you guys have all got certain tools and certain ways you can cope with the stresses of performance. So I think that's a great thing. Yeah. Not only in sport, but, you know, as you progress in life and stuff like that, it's good to have tools to be able to cope with various situations.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We're taking a bit of a trip again. We're going back to France. Me and the boys
Going around the world, boys.
Me and the boys were talking about this before we started this podcast. So France is known for their snail eating. We were wondering if you've ever eaten a snail and when you're in France.
Yeah, of course. Delicious. As long as they're cooked properly.
Right.
Doesn't even taste like you think a snail would. But no, there's quite a few different things you eat over there. I remember getting there pretty quickly, and we're in a restaurant, and the person on the table beside us had their meal come out, and it was just a pure raw beef patty with a raw egg on top of it. And I remember my wife and I looking at each other like, what the hell is that? And sure enough, they just tuck into it, but it's called beef tartare, which is actually quite common. But it's in essence, yeah, it's just a raw beef patty sitting on a plate with a raw egg.
Yeah. And as a young kid, that would have been a shock.
Oh yeah, it was. And another time we were at a function for my club, and it was like a sponsors function, and one of the French boys come up behind me, and he'd dug his finger into one of the bowls of a really strong blue cheese, like a local cheese.
Yeah.
And he'd come up behind me and shoved it up my nostrils. And this is when some speeches and that were happening, and I was just dry reaching. I remember it was the worst smell I've ever had. Just horrific. So I never ate sort of those strong tasting cheese after that, and I still don't, because it's what it reminds me of. But yeah, they have a few things over there, you know, food-wise, smell-wise, that are different.
Yeah.
What's another one? The old frogois, duck liver. So they basically force feed the ducks, the geese or whatever, and then they fatten them up, and then they take the liver out of them, and it's a delicacy, which is really nice.
Wow.
Not something I thought I'd eat too much, but it's
No,
on a fresh French baguette. It's quite tasty.
quite nice.
Yeah.
Have you brought any of these foods back to New Zealand or just kind of left them in France?
Nah, we'll leave that stuff over there, I reckon, mate. Pretty strict at our borders.
Talking about all that food in France, is there something while you were over there that you were just missing about New Zealand food?
Japan more so, the French, they have pretty good meat, and the local markets and that are really good. So your fresh food, and they actually, we could buy New Zealand racks of lamb and stuff like that over there, which was really good. So we didn't miss too much over there, but Japan, we really missed the New Zealand food because it is so different. So like I say, your really nice cuts of meat from New Zealand, and, just the grocery shopping is so much different in Japan.
Yeah.
But that's kind of part of the novelty of Japan as well. Yeah.
Wow. So that's probably going to have to wrap up our podcast today, but just endlessly grateful for you coming in, Cam, and talking to us and giving us some of your experiences in the as a BDN, and I guess in the real world as well. And we're just hugely grateful. So thank you very much.
Thank you, lads. Thank you. Look forward to seeing the podcast take off, and maybe I can help you with some sponsors and all that sort of stuff, eh?
Yeah,
So
awesome.
well done.
Appreciate
Good
it.
initiative.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.
Rangers out.
Rangers out.